What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we are taking it back to the Solar Hunter and Gunslinger subclass, utilizing the Ophidia Spathe exotic chess piece for that double throwing knife charge, allowing us to stay radiant the entire time, spreading that Scorch around, and basically having infinite throwing knives up at all time, especially since they got the changes to gunpowder gamble. We're going to be able to do some gnarly damage with that, creating Scorch and explosions everywhere with this build. Super slept on, super fun, and when we have a solar season, this thing will take that juice to the next level, creating that S++ build. So let's get started right here with our abilities, aspects, and fragments. First off, we got that Blade Barrage, just definitely the best in my opinion for the PvE realm, versatility wise, especially when you're going in with a fire team. Now I am using Gambler's Dodge so we can dodge and get back our knife trick here. Also, this is what I feel like is the best for this exotic and build with that Scorch specifically. Now I use triple jump pretty much specifically inside of PvE, but you can go with whatever you want, and for me, using that firebolt grenade for Scorch as well, partially because of our aspects and fragments. Now those aspects I'm talking about is Knock 'em Down and Gunpowder Gamble. Knock 'em Down right here are Solar Super, and Blade Barrage launches more projectiles, while Radiant Final Blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund that energy. So we can use this infinitely, like I said. Even though we are going to have two of them, it allows us to do that extra little bit of damage on some of those orange yellow bar champions. When we break their solar shield with the first one, then we can throw the second one, which might even cause them to ignite, especially if we throw a grenade. Then we can dodge right away, get both of those charges back, and keep on doing damage while staying radiant. And when we get that final blow, we get both of those charges all the way back. So it's an infinite throwing knife farm with a lot of Scorch going on and ignitions. On top of that, Gunpowder Gamble, defeating targets with abilities, solar debuffs, solar weapons to charge up a solar explosive. We can throw this in mid-air, causing an ignition. So like I said, all of this right here in our aspects, as well as our melee and our firebolt grenades, stacked pretty heavily, causing a lot of Scorch and solar debuffs in general going around. So very easy to get all of this to proc and have that infinite throwing knives up at all times. Now, when we move on to our fragments, first off, we got Ember of Torches, so we can have that radiant up at all times when we have powered melee attacks against combatants, making us and nearby allies radiant. Ember of Ashes, we apply more stacks of Scorch to targets. Like I said, both of these applying more stacks of Scorch, allowing us to ignite even more targets. Next up, Ember of Searing, defeating all those Scorch targets, grants us melee energy and creates fire sprites. So fire sprites will give us grenade energy back in our firebolt, and we're getting a grenade and melee energy from defeating those Scorch targets, basically because of the searing proccing as well as the fire sprites. And last, Ember of Singeing right here, we get our class ability faster when we Scorch targets, so scorching targets with all this, as well as Gunpowder Gamble. So that is why we only have 60 on the mobility, because this right here is going to allow us to get our dodge back basically instantly with this build as well. When we move on to our weapons right here, using that Riptide for Overload and Unstoppable champions with that Stasis, Freeze, and Slow. Now I am using Zauli's Bane with Explosive Payload Incandescent for even more Scorch, and next season, like I said in a couple of my past videos, hand cannons are getting an absolute juicer buff inside of the PvE realm. So Zauli's Bane, Time Lost, Fatebringer going to be the cream of the crop for sure for those hand cannons. So I think that this is going to be absolutely nuts. And Galahorn, just the king of the PvE realm. Add clear DPS for rockets, given a Wolfpack rounds to your fellow allies. So very good addition to this build, allowing you to wipe out everything in your path. Now, when we move on to our artifact right here, not going to be using too much because this is a solar build. This season in Season of the Deep is Arc void and strand focused. So next season, this build will probably be even better if we get some solar focus on our artifact mod. Now, really, all I'm using on this is authorized melee mod and making sure I don't have unstoppable hand cannon. So when I become radiant with those melee defeats and melee throws, we're going to be able to use our hand cannon to stop those anti-barrier champions because of the radiant effect. Moving on to our mods on our armor right here. First up on our helmet, hands on again, so we can get that super energy blade barrage a little bit more fast on the melee defeats. And since we have infinite throwing knives, very easy to get those to proc with solar siphon. So our Galahorn as well as Zawuli's Bane will help us to create even more orbs of power. Now we're going to be using heavy-handed to create orbs of power on all of those melee final blows, as well as focusing strike and impact induction here. So we're going to get our grenade as well as our class ability back when we cause damage with our melee. So a little positive feedback loop to be able to dodge as well as throw our grenade more often when we're making connects with that melee. Now Ophidia Spathe with scissor fingers, nothing too crazy. We just gain an additional throwing knife charge, allowing us to have that even more infinite throwing knives than we had before. Like I said, we can even break off a shield on a solar enemy, use the next one to do a little bit of damage, dodge to get both of those charges back, and then usually you can do enough damage with both of those, maybe a shot from your Zawulis, and get that defeat. Refreshes all of that as well, creating fire sprites on the side. Now for me, I'm using harmonic reserves, so our Galahorn can have a little extra shot, as well as arc resistant with melee resistant. You can change melee out for sniper or concussive, whatever you're going into. Same with arc, you can change out for solar, void, stasis, depending on what kind of enemies you're running into. Now, when we move on to our legs right here, we're going to be using double solar weapon surge. So these are going to get that 17% damage increase in our Galahorn damage, as well as Zawuli's Bane. So that'll help as well in some of that end game content, wiping out those champions, a little bit harder enemies, and just in general, 17% damage increase just feels good in basically any type of PvE content. And last but certainly not least right here, Bomber Outreach Time Dilation. So the decay on Armor Charge is a longer duration, allowing these to be procced even longer than normal. As well as Outreach, we get our melee cooldown when we dodge, as well as Bomber. But this right here doesn't really matter unless we are outside of enemy range, because Gambler's Dodge is giving us back our melees anyway, so you could really use double Bomber if you wanted. Probably a more practical way. I just wanted to make sure that I could get that melee back even if I was outside of battle, but this will give you back your fire sprites and those grenades even faster by defeating all of those Scorch targets from our Firebolt grenade, as well as all of those infinite melees. This build is very, very fun to use. Definitely excited to get back on some solar builds next season. Hopefully we're gonna have like a solar stasis and strand season. That would be absolutely a blast, and would love that a lot. So definitely be on the lookout for those builds next season. Hopefully y'all enjoy this one right here. We are finishing up the season strong with these builds and just a couple more little weapon guides going into next season with what I think is going to be super, super nice with all the changes to weapons as well as abilities. So thank you guys again for that support. I truly, truly appreciate all y'all. Make sure to join the channel, hit the sub bell button to make sure you don't miss out on any of these videos. Join the Discord down in the description. One-Eyed Jedi basically everywhere on all my socials, so make sure to follow me on those. And just appreciate all y'all for continuing to come back and hang out on the channel. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.